We lost $80,000 at this foreclosure auction.
And we're never going to let that happen again. And to help you avoid these kind of mistakes, we wrote the book on buying properties at foreclosure auction.
And we've made many mistakes over the way, but we want to teach you from our mistakes so you don't make the same ones.
My name's Kevin, this is Matt. Together we're two guys take on real estate, and we want you to subscribe to this channel to learn from our mistakes and hit the like button to encourage other people to check this video out.
This was a non-judicial auction. This is an auction that was not approved by a judge, but there is certain procedures they have to follow to host the auction, typically hosted by a third-party auctioneer.
Yeah, some states are judicial, some states are non-judicial. This happened in a judicial state.
Yes, and that is Massachusetts.
Right.
This was also in a town called Beckett, Massachusetts, which is a more rural town. There's not a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, this, just to give you an idea, this property was across the street from the town store.
The town store. I think it was also the post office. It's pretty one.
Well, yeah, most towns have a post office, but most towns have more than one store.
Right.
I mean, yeah. So that gives you some idea of how rural this town is. Awesome place. And we could not wait to buy property there.
Exactly, and it was on a body of water. It happened to be a pond, nothing.
Yeah, I mean, a puddle is a body of water, and that's basically what this pond was. This was you couldn't run a boat on there or anything with a motor.
You could paddle a boat on it.
You could paddle a very small boat. Yeah,
sure, fishing boat.
Sure.
You know?
Well, the king said it was daft to build a castle in a swamp, but I've built it all the same.
Maybe a little kayak.
Yeah, absolutely. A little battery-powered RC boat, maybe.
Wow.
You know.
Yes.
Sure.
This was on my list of about 20 auctions that week that I was running around the state with. And so I was doing a little due diligence beforehand, but just basics.
Yeah,
trying to
very
figure
little
out
due diligence beforehand.
And this is part of the moral of the story, more due diligence. I was checking out if there was any city-owed taxes, stuff like that. So I was calling around. We did get some information about back-owed taxes, stuff like that. So we knew something was, a little bit was owed.
Right.
And I was checking on if it was septic, which we did know it was a septic system there.
Of course, yeah.
So that is important in these rural towns because septic systems, you want to know if they failed recently, because that could be a big expense.
A big wild card. You know, you didn't factor into your rehab later.
Correct, exactly. So we're doing some due diligence. So we weren't complete novices. This is earlier on in our auction career, but not so early that we were complete novices.
Amateurs.
I show up to the auction. As always, I try to get there a little bit early, walk around the property. I mean, it had a nice back deck on the property. You could see the water, which was nice.
I mean, everything seemed nice. Little did you know.
Yes, little did I know. I mean, in general, the property looked good. We actually got to get into the property.
Really?
So this is one of those rare occasions they actually hosted the auction in the kitchen of the property. And it was tiled, kind of a poor job of tiling, but it was tiled.
No, it was a cool property in general.
Sure.
It needed work, obviously, like any foreclosure often does.
Correct. I mean, there was some general maintenance, upkeep that needed to be done, painting, something like that. It was a small rehab, to be honest. It was on a scale of 1 to 10. We're looking at a 2 or a 3 for rehab, so nothing crazy.
Yeah.
Awesome. So we're excited about the property.
We're excited. I mean, we talked to a couple of other people who were also really excited because of the fact that it was rural. It had this huge back deck, this body of water. We'll call it a pond. It was really nice for outdoor living. And a lot of people thought, hey, this would be something, maybe we'll even keep the house for ourselves or something.
There was an idea thrown around that maybe we'll use this as kind of a summer home for the company. We can all take turns and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's right in our backyard. But.
Yeah, I mean, sadly, I would not want to spend a week going on vacation to a town that's literally 10 minutes away from where I grew up. That sounded very, very ironic to me. You know, I finally made it. I can take a vacation back home, I guess.
I get to the auction, did my due diligence, walking through, put up together my rehab budget. We figured the ARV back then, and I'm trying to remember, this was quite a few years ago, but I think the ARV was around 300, maybe 320.
Yeah.
So we had a rough ARV, we had our rehab, and we did know some of the liens that were done. We knew that the septic system was actually pretty decent. So we backed out and came up with a bid number. So they hosted the auction, read the whole memorandum of sale, did all this stuff. And they announced the bid, and I believe I was bid up a little bit, but we won the auction for $76,000.
We got super excited, I'm sure, right?
Yes, this was exciting. I mean, I think our bid number was probably, I mean, we were willing to go up to, mid 150-ish. So maybe 150, 155.
Sure. Little did we know.
We did not do our due diligence properly. And when it came to signing the paperwork, basically this was a second mortgage that was foreclosing.
Oh.
Basically it's first in time, first in line. And there was another bank that was owed $80,000 prior to the mortgage that was foreclosing that day, which basically means if we're going to close on this to get clear title, we also have to pay off that $80,000.
First position.
First position holder. Exactly. So That was an $80,000 mistake. I mean, if we had just learned that early on, we maybe wouldn't have even gone to the auction.
Maybe not. Maybe we would have. Maybe we still would have bought the house, knowing that we'd have to pay whatever our bid was, 76 plus the initial 80.
Well, and we did. Actually, in this case, we ran our numbers and we figured, okay, even paying that with the rehab, we could probably actually refinance out all of our cash. And if this is something we're holding for the company, it makes sense. Sure. And even if we wanted to flip it or rent it out, it would still cash flow, and the numbers made sense to us. Now, it wasn't a great wow property, but it was a property.
Yeah, I mean, we essentially bought a property. We thought we were buying it for $76,000. It cost us an extra $80 on top of that. And of course, it did mean we had to kind of re-examine what we're going to do with the property now, maybe pivot our strategy on it a bit.
Well, and then the other risk also, if we decided to pull out, we did have to, I believe at that time, bring a $10,000 check for a deposit.
Yeah.
So potentially, even if we decided to say, all right, we're not going to close because of this extra lien, which is something we had the right to do, well, we technically would also lose our $10,000 deposit. So we kind of weighed the pros and cons of that and made a business decision to move forward with it. And that's kind of where we kind of ended up with this property. What could we have done differently? So this is where a little bit more due diligence and how we are doing all of our other properties now is we're going to the land records, so the registry of deeds, and we are doing our own basic title search prior to these auctions. So let's just say next week there's a bunch of auctions. We're going through the registry of deeds in those towns and pulling up who's foreclosing, and are there any other liens that are prior to that?
Right.
Whether it be tax liens, mechanical liens, anything.
And we've seen liens that could be crazy that come from the municipalities. Like taxes, things like that nobody knows about anywhere. And all of a sudden, bam, 20,000 here or 30,000 there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then, of course, other bank liens, and that's the big one. And this one is another bank lien. So it's really important to know that, get that data. So now when we put our sheets together, stuff like that, we're looking at, well, this is a second mortgage. And we do know that there's maybe 20,000, 50,000, 100,000 owed prior to that we're going to have to basically incorporate into our bidding strategy. So when we're calculating our rehab budgets and all of our ARVs, we're having our ARV here, we subtract out basically rehab, any other liens. That's including first mortgages or anything else prior to the other lien, any other municipal liens, then our closing costs, our commission, all that stuff, whatever the process is, and then basically our profit margin, and that's where we're coming up with our allowable bid.
The maximum allowable bid.
Exactly. So that's how we're kind of calculating now. The one piece that we were missing that time was we didn't know this was a second lien because we did not take the time to do our full due diligence and pull up the registry of deeds.
So how did we do overall with the property? Well, we floundered with it for a little bit. I think we tried renting it a little while. It sat vacant for a while. We did a decent renovation to it. It was a nice property in general. But don't forget, this is a rural property, so we got in it for more than we were initially expecting. I don't think it was going to cash flow if we were to keep it as a rental. I think that's what we decided. So I think what we ended up deciding was, hey, we got to let this thing go, and we'll turn it into basically kind of a flip, like a long-term flip.
It was a long-term flip.
Flip every day!
So the benefits of that was we did rent it for a while. I believe we were slightly cash flow positive, maybe, it was borderline break even. Obviously, we were getting tax advantages. We were getting paid down on principal, stuff like that. So there were some other benefits there. But by holding it over a year, we also lowered our capital gains from short-term to long-term, which was a benefit.
Oh, yeah.
And then we did end up selling it for a decent profit.
Yeah.
And kind of moved on and let someone else have a nice home on Pond in Beckett.
We're really, really happy to be able to share this kind of stuff with you because this is a story that was a successful purchase. However, we did make an $80,000 mistake in the course of that purchase. And we wanted to share that kind of stuff with you. Now, we talk about a lot of this in our book, which we've cleverly titled Foreclosures Unlocked. It's a choose-your-own-adventure book because we can't do anything like normal adults. And we wanted to put out something that helps you learn from not just our successes, but from our struggles as well.
And there are many of them. As always, we're coming out with new videos every Thursday, so make sure you hit that bell icon.
Yeah, because you don't want to miss the one we have coming out next. I want everybody to be able to see it and comment on the next one.
As always, guys, we're two guys take on real estate.